Emma Roberts stared at the eviction notice taped to her apartment door, her hands trembling as she tore it down. The harsh fluorescent lighting in the hallway cast shadows across the crumpled paper, making the threatening words seem even more ominous. 3 months behind on rent. Final warning. 72 hours to vacate. Inside her small 2-bedroom apartment, she could hear 8-year-old Noah practicing his violin, the sweet, albeit slightly off-key, notes of "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" drifted through the thin walls. Emma pressed her palm against her mouth to stifle a sob. Her son's music lessons were one of the few luxuries she couldn't bring herself to cut from their budget. Even as their financial situation had spiraled out of control, she slipped inside, forcing a smile as Noah looked up from his instrument. His dark curls fell across his forehead, and his green eyes, so much like her own, lit up at the sight of her. "Mom, did you hear that? I almost got through the whole song without messing up." "That sounds beautiful, sweetheart," Emma said, her voice wavering slightly. "Keep practicing while I make dinner, okay?" In the kitchen, Emma mechanically went through the motions of preparing mac and cheese, Noah's favorite, and, more importantly, one of the few items left in their nearly empty pantry. Her mind wandered to the envelope hidden in her bedroom drawer, the one containing information about the upcoming exclusive dating auction she'd learned about through a desperate late-night internet search. The concept made her stomach churn. Wealthy men bidding on women for marriage or companionship. It seemed like something out of a dystopian novel, not a solution for a single mother in Toronto. But the potential payout, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars, kept drawing her thoughts back to it. Emma's job as a medical billing specialist barely covered their basic needs, and Noah's medical expenses from his chronic asthma had drained what little savings they'd had. She'd already maxed out her credit cards, borrowed from friends until shame prevented her from asking for more, and picked up weekend shifts at a local diner. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. As she stirred the pot of pasta, Emma's mind drifted back to happier times. She thought of her parents, killed in a car accident when she was 20, leaving her alone to navigate adulthood. She remembered Noah's father, a charming grad student who disappeared the moment she told him she was pregnant. Every step of her life seemed marked by loss and struggle. That night, after tucking Noah into bed and kissing his forehead, Emma sat at her small kitchen table with the auction paperwork spread before her. The forms were surprisingly professional, with detailed contracts and background check requirements. The organization catered to wealthy international businessmen seeking wives or companions, all perfectly legal despite its questionable ethics. Her hands shook as she filled out the application. Education, Bachelor's in Healthcare Administration. Age, 32. Marital status, never married. Children. She hesitated, then checked no. The instructions had been clear. Women with children were less desirable to potential bidders. The lie felt like acid in her throat, but she forced herself to continue. As she prepared for bed that night, Emma caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Dark circles underlined her green eyes, and worry lines creased her forehead, but she could still see traces of the confident woman she'd once been. Her auburn hair fell in natural waves past her shoulders, and regular runs in the park had kept her figure trim despite the stress of recent years. Just one night, she whispered to her reflection. One night to secure Noah's future. The auction was in 3 days. 3 days to find someone to watch Noah, to prepare herself mentally, to silence the voice in her head screaming that this was madness. But as she passed Noah's room and heard his slight wheeze, the asthma acting up again, she knew she'd already made her decision. Some sacrifices were worth making, no matter the cost to her pride or her heart. The Grand Royal Hotel's ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and old money. Emma tugged at the borrowed black cocktail dress, feeling like an imposter among the other women who clearly owned their designer gowns. The backstage area hummed with nervous energy as 20 women prepared for their entrance. "Remember? Ladies," the coordinator, a sharp-featured woman named Miss Chen, addressed them. "Confidence is everything. These men can smell fear and desperation. Walk tall, smile naturally, and remember your number." Emma touched the small 12 pin to her dress. She'd spent the afternoon practicing her walk in borrowed heels, trying to channel the poise she'd once had before life had beaten it out of her. Now, listening to the muffled sounds of the auction beginning, her heart threatened to burst from her chest. Through a gap in the curtain, she could see the audience. About 50 men in expensive suits, some wearing traditional Middle Eastern or Asian attire, all exuding an aura of power and wealth. They sat at elegant round tables, drinking champagne and examining detailed portfolios of the women they were about to bid on. Emma's mind raced, considering the cultural differences she might encounter. How would she navigate a relationship with someone from a completely different background? Would she be expected to convert to a new religion, learn a new language? The enormity of what she was about to do crashed over her like a wave. The first few women went quickly, some selling for as little as $200,000, others approaching the $1 million mark. Emma's hands grew clammy as her number drew closer. She thought of Noah, staying with her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, probably wondering why his mother had to attend a special work event on a Saturday night. "Number 12, Ms. Chen called sharply. "You're up." Emma's legs felt like lead as she walked onto the stage. The spotlight blinded her, making the audience appear as mere shadows. The auctioneer, a distinguished-looking man with silver hair, began his pitch. Lot number 12, 32 years old, bachelor's degree, fluent in English and conversational French. Natural beauty with a classic elegance. Shall we start the bidding at $200,000? The numbers began climbing. $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. Emma forced herself to keep smiling, even as she felt like a prized horse at a show. Her mind raced through the potential legal implications of what she was doing. Was this even enforceable? What rights would she have once the auction was over? Then, a new voice cut through the bidding, deep and accented. $1 million. The room fell silent. Through the glare of the spotlight, Emma could make out a man rising from his seat. Tall, with olive skin and dark eyes that seemed to pierce straight through her, he carried himself with the easy confidence of someone used to getting his way. "Mr. Al-Sayed," the auctioneer acknowledged, clearly impressed. "We have $1 million from Mr. Malik Al-Sayed. Going once, going twice, sold." As Emma was led off the stage, her mind whirled with a mix of relief and terror. $1 million. Enough to secure Noah's future, to pay off their debts, to start a new life. But at what cost? As she caught Mr. Al-Sayed's intense gaze across the room, Emma realized that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't even begin to imagine. The private jet's leather seat felt foreign against Emma's skin as she stared out the window at the Toronto skyline disappearing. Beneath the clouds, beside her, Malik Al-Sayed worked quietly on his laptop, his fingers moving swiftly across the keyboard. In the 12 hours since he'd won the auction, he'd spoken little, leaving most of the arrangements to his efficient staff. Emma clutched her small overnight bag, the only possession she'd brought besides the clothes on her back. Malik had assured her that everything she needed would be provided at his New York penthouse. The thought made her uncomfortable, but she reminded herself that discomfort was a small price to pay for Noah's security. "We'll be landing in approximately 1 hour," Malik said, closing his laptop. His English was perfect, with just a hint of an accent that Emma couldn't quite place. "I trust the flight has been comfortable." "Yes, thank you," Emma responded, trying to keep her voice steady. In the morning light streaming through the window, she could better observe what was he? Owner, employer. His sharp features were softened by thick, dark lashes, and despite his imposing presence, there was something in his eyes that seemed almost kind. "I'm sure you have many questions," Malik continued, turning to face her fully. "I believe in transparency, so please, ask anything you'd like." Emma hesitated, then decided to be direct. "What exactly are your expectations from this arrangement, Mr. Al-Sayed?" "Malik, please," he said with a small smile. "And to answer your question, I expect companionship, discretion, and eventually an heir. My family's business empire is expanding, and I need a partner who can stand beside me at social events engage in intelligent conversation, and help maintain our family's legacy. Emma nodded, her mind racing. And what about intimacy? Malik's expression remained neutral. That will be part of our arrangement, yes. But I assure you, I'm not a monster. We'll take things at a pace that's comfortable for both of us. As they discussed the details of their contract, Emma felt a mix of relief and apprehension. The terms were generous, more so than she had expected. But the reality of what she had agreed to was starting to sink in. The Manhattan penthouse took up the entire top floor of a sleek high-rise in the Upper East Side. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of Central Park, and the interior was a stunning blend of modern luxury and traditional Middle Eastern elements. "This will be your room," Malik said, leading her to a suite larger than her entire apartment in Toronto. "My housekeeper, Mrs. Rodriguez, will help you settle in. I've arranged for a stylist to visit tomorrow to build your wardrobe. We'll discuss the details of our arrangement over dinner this evening." Emma nodded, fighting back tears as he left her alone in the vast room. The king-sized bed was covered in silk sheets, and the bathroom featured a marble tub big enough for 3 people. It was beautiful, luxurious, and felt completely wrong. She waited until she heard Malik's footsteps fade before pulling out her phone, her one connection to Noah. There was already a text from Mrs. Peterson. "Noah's had his dinner and medicine. He misses you but understands you're working hard for his future. Stay strong, dear." Emma sank onto the bed, finally allowing herself to cry. The tears were for Noah, for herself, for the desperation that had led her here. But as she looked around at her gilded cage, she squared her shoulders and wiped her eyes. She had made her choice. Now she had to live with it. The dining room's crystal chandelier cast prismatic patterns across the mahogany table where Emma sat across from Malik. The chef had prepared an elaborate meal, a fusion of Middle Eastern and Western cuisine, but she could barely taste the food as Malik's lawyer methodically explained the contract terms. "The agreement is straightforward," the lawyer said, his wire-rimmed glasses reflecting the soft lighting. "Mr. Al-Sayed requires an heir. Once you've delivered a healthy child, you'll receive the agreed-upon sum plus an additional stipend for medical care and living expenses. After that, you're free to leave if you choose." Emma's fork clattered against her plate. "And if I can't? If I'm unable to conceive?" "Medical screening was part of your auction application," Malik interjected smoothly. "Your fertility tests were favorable." He paused, studying her with those penetrating dark eyes. "Unless there's something you haven't disclosed." Emma thought of Noah and forced herself to maintain eye contact. "No, nothing." The lie tasted bitter in her mouth. "You'll have everything you need," Malik continued. "The best medical care, a generous allowance, complete privacy. I only ask for discretion and commitment to our agreement." As the lawyer droned on about clauses and subclauses, Emma's mind wandered to the cultural differences she'd observed so far. The artwork on the walls blended Western abstract pieces with intricate Islamic calligraphy. Even the meal before her was a testament to Malik's dual world. Traditional hummus and tabbouleh alongside a perfectly cooked filet mignon. "There's one more thing," Malik said as the lawyer finished. "I know this arrangement is unconventional, but I hope that over time, we can build a partnership based on mutual respect and understanding. I'm not looking for a submissive wife, Emma. I want someone who can challenge me, who has her own thoughts and opinions." Emma met his gaze, surprised by the sincerity she saw there. "I appreciate that, Malik. But you have to understand, this is all very overwhelming. My whole life has changed in the span of a few days." Malik nodded. "Of course, take all the time you need to adjust. My only request is that you make an effort to learn about my culture and background, as I will yours. Can we agree to that?" "Yes," Emma said, feeling a small spark of hope for the first time since the auction. "I think we can." As she signed the contract, Emma couldn't help but think of the life she'd left behind in Toronto, the tiny apartment that had been home for so long, the park where she and Noah had spent countless weekends, the diner where she'd picked up extra shifts to make ends meet. It all seemed like a distant dream now. But as she looked at Malik, who was watching her with a mixture of curiosity and something else she couldn't quite define. Emma realized that this new chapter of her life held possibilities she had never imagined. For better or worse, her journey with Malik El-Sayed was just beginning. Weeks passed, and Emma found herself settling into a routine. Her mornings began with breakfast on the terrace, where she would secretly text Noah before Mrs. Rodriguez arrived with the day's schedule. Sometimes, Malik would join her, and to her surprise, these moments became less awkward over time. "You run?" he asked one morning, noticing her running shoes by the door. "Every day, when I can," she replied. "It helps me think." "Central Park is beautiful this time of year," he said, then hesitated. "Perhaps we could run together sometime." The offer surprised her, as did her own response. "I'd like that." Their first run together revealed a different side of Malik. Away from the penthouse and his corporate empire, he seemed more human. He matched her pace easily, and their conversation flowed naturally between topics. His childhood in Dubai, his education at Oxford, his love for architecture. "What about your family?" he asked as they caught their breath near Bethesda Fountain. Emma's heart clenched. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 20. I don't have any siblings." It wasn't entirely a lie, but the guilt of hiding Noah ate at her. Malik's expression softened. "I'm sorry to hear that. My mother died when I was young. My father. He's a complicated man. He expects me to carry on the family legacy, produce an heir, maintain our traditions. Is that why you chose this arrangement?" He was quiet for a moment, watching a family pass by with their children. "Partly, business consumes my life. Traditional dating seemed inefficient. This way, expectations are clear." But as their eyes met, Emma wondered if anything about their situation was truly clear anymore. As the days went by, Emma found herself learning more about Malik's culture. She began studying Arabic, fascinated by the elegant script and the way the language seemed to dance off the tongue. Malik, in turn, showed genuine interest in her background, asking about Canadian customs and her life before the auction. One evening, as they sat in his study discussing a book they had both read, Emma realized with a start that she was enjoying Malik's company. He was intelligent, witty, and surprisingly compassionate. But the weight of her secret pressed heavily on her conscience, tainting every moment of connection. "Emma," Malik said, his voice serious, "I know this arrangement started as a business transaction, but I want you to know that I respect you. I hope that in time, we can build something real between us." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. "Malik, she began, but the words caught in her throat. How could she tell him about Noah? How could she not? The guilt grew heavier. With each passing day, Emma's phone calls with Noah became increasingly difficult to hide, and his questions more challenging to answer. "When are you coming home, Mama? Don't you miss me?" Each word was a dagger to her heart. She'd arranged for Mrs. Peterson to receive monthly payments for Noah's care, but money couldn't replace a mother's presence. The weight of her deception pressed down on her, especially during intimate moments with Malik. Their relationship had evolved beyond the clinical terms of their contract. She found herself looking forward to their morning runs, their quiet dinners, the way his hand would sometimes rest on the small of her back as they walked. But every tender moment was tainted by her secret. One evening, as they sat in his study, Malik looked up from his work. "You seem troubled lately." "I'm fine," she said automatically, but her voice wavered. He set aside his laptop and moved to sit beside her on the leather sofa. "Emma, I've noticed the private phone calls, the way you disappear at certain times each day. If there's someone else—" "No," she interrupted, horrified. "It's not that, The words stuck in her throat. His hand found hers, warm and steady. "Whatever it is, we can discuss it. I'm not the monster you might think I am." Emma pulled her hand away, standing abruptly. "I can't. Please don't ask me." That night, as she lay in her bed, Emma could hear Malik pacing in his study. The sound matched the restless beating of her heart. How long could she maintain this charade? And more importantly, What would happen when the truth inevitably came to light? She thought about the life she had built with Malik over the past few months, the way he had opened up to her about his family's expectations, the pressure he felt to succeed. She remembered the vulnerability in his eyes when he spoke about his mother's death, the way he had listened without judgment when she shared stories from her own past. But she also thought about Noah, her sweet, asthmatic little boy who loved soccer and struggled with math. The child who had been her whole world for 8 years. How could she have ever thought she could leave him behind? As dawn broke over the New York skyline, Emma made a decision. She couldn't live with the lie anymore. Whatever the consequences, she had to tell Malik the truth. She owed him that much, and she owed it to herself. With trembling hands, she reached for her phone and pulled up a photo of Noah. It was time to face the music, whatever tune it might play. Emma's heart pounded as she made her way to Malik's study, the photo of Noah pulled up on her phone. She had rehearsed what she would say a dozen times, but the words seemed to evaporate as she reached for the door handle. Before she could knock, the door swung open. Malik stood there, his expression unreadable, holding a piece of paper in his hand. "Emma," he said, his voice low and controlled. "I think we need to talk." She followed him into the study, her legs feeling like lead. As she sank into one of the leather armchairs, Malik handed her the paper he was holding. It was a printout of an email from his private investigator. "I had you investigated," Malik said, his tone matter-of-fact. "It's standard procedure for all my business dealings. I should have done it before the auction, but I was intrigued by you. I wanted to believe in the possibility of something genuine." Emma's hands trembled as she scanned the email. There, in black and white, was her entire life laid bare, including the existence of her son, Noah. "Explain," Malik demanded, his voice dangerously quiet. Emma's legs gave out, and she sank deeper into the chair. "His name is Noah. He's 8, and he has chronic asthma. The medical bills, the rent, everything was piling up. I was going to lose our apartment. I had no choice." "No choice," Malik's voice rose. "You lied on your application. You lied to me for months. Every conversation, every moment we've shared has been built on deception." He ran a hand through his dark hair, his composure cracking. "Where is he now?" "With my elderly neighbor in Toronto. She's been caring for him while I'm here." Tears streamed down Emma's face. "I send money for his care, for his medications. Please, Malik, he's all I have." "All you have?" He laughed bitterly. "What about our child? The one we've been trying to conceive? Were you planning to abandon it once you got your money?" The accusation struck like a physical blow. "No, I would never. I love children. I'm a good mother." "A good mother who sells herself and abandons her child." Emma stood, anger flaring through her tears. "Don't you dare judge me. You have no idea what it's like to watch your child struggle to breathe and know you can't afford his medication. To see him wearing shoes with holes because you can't buy new ones. To lie awake at night terrified that one asthma attack could—" Her voice broke. Something in Malik's expression shifted as he looked at her, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. "Show me," he said quietly. With shaking hands, Emma pulled up the photo of Noah on her phone. It showed her and Noah at his 8th birthday party, just months before the auction. Their matching smiles and his arms wrapped around her neck told a story that no words could hide. Malik stared at the photo for a long moment, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. "I need time to process this," he said finally. "We both do." As Emma left the study, she felt as though her entire world was crumbling around her. But beneath the fear and uncertainty, there was also a glimmer of relief. The truth was out. For better or worse, there were no more secrets between them. 3 days of agonizing silence followed. Emma remained in her room, expecting security to escort her out at any moment. Instead, on the 4th morning, Malik knocked on her door. "Get dressed," he said, his voice neutral. "We're going to Toronto." The private jet ride was tense, but Emma could sense Malik wrestling with something. When they pulled up to her old apartment building, her heart nearly stopped. Mrs. Peterson had brought Noah down to the courtyard, where he was playing with his worn soccer ball. The moment Noah saw her, he dropped the ball and ran. "Mama!" Emma fell to her knees, gathering him in her arms, breathing in his familiar scent. "My baby, my sweet boy." Through tear-blurred eyes, she saw Malik watching them, his expression softening. Noah pulled back, looking curiously at the tall man. "Are you my mom's boss?" he asked with childish directness. Malik knelt down to Noah's level. "Something like that. I hear you like soccer." Noah's face lit up, and soon they were passing the ball back and forth while Emma and Mrs. Peterson watched in amazement. When Noah started wheezing slightly, Malik immediately noticed, producing an inhaler from his pocket. He'd done his research. Later, in Mrs. Peterson's small apartment, Malik sat across from Emma while Noah napped in his room. "I understand now," he said quietly. "Why you did what you did. The sacrifice." He paused, collecting his thoughts. "Emma, what you did was wrong. You lied, and that breach of trust is not easily repaired." Emma nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "But," Malik continued, "I also see a mother who would do anything for her child. That kind of love. It's rare and valuable." He took a deep breath. "I want to make you an offer." Emma listened, scarcely daring to breathe, as Malik outlined his proposal. He would honor their original contract, providing for Emma and Noah financially. But more than that, he wanted to try to build a real family with both of them. "It won't be easy," Malik warned. "There will be cultural differences to navigate, trust to rebuild, but if you're willing to try, I am too." Emma looked at Malik, seeing him with new eyes. This man, who had every right to be furious with her, was instead offering a chance at redemption, at a real future. "Yes," she whispered, taking his hand. "Let's try." As they left the apartment, Noah sleepily holding Emma's hand, and Malik carrying the boy's small suitcase, Emma felt a wave of hope wash over her. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with obstacles and uncertainties. But for the first time in years, she wasn't facing it alone. The transition wasn't smooth at first. Moving Noah into the penthouse required careful planning, enrollment in a new school, and finding the right doctors. But Malik approached it with the same determination he brought to his business dealings. "He needs structure," Malik said one evening, reviewing Noah's schedule, "but also time to just be a kid." He'd converted one of the spare rooms into a playroom, complete with a mini soccer goal and an air purifier for Noah's asthma. Emma watched him with Noah, saw how naturally they took to each other. Malik taught Noah basic Arabic phrases, helped with his math homework, and never missed an inhaler dose. In return, Noah brought out a playful side of Malik that few ever saw. One night, after tucking Noah in, Emma found Malik in his study, poring over medical journals about childhood asthma. "You don't have to do all this," she said softly. Malik looked up, his eyes tired but determined. "Yes, I do. If we're going to be a family, I need to understand everything about Noah's condition." The word family sent a warmth through Emma's chest, but also a pang of guilt. "Malik, about the contract, about having a baby." He held up a hand to stop her. "One step at a time, Emma. Right now, our priority is Noah and rebuilding our trust. The rest will come when it's meant to." As the weeks turned into months, Emma saw a gradual shift in their dynamics. Malik's initial reservations gave way to genuine affection for Noah. Family dinners became a nightly ritual, filled with laughter and stories. Noah's English tutor was joined by an Arabic instructor, as Malik wanted him to be fluent in both languages. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were cultural clashes, Malik's traditional values sometimes conflicting with Emma's more liberal upbringing. They argued about everything from Noah's diet to appropriate punishments for misbehavior. Yet each disagreement, once resolved, seemed to bring them closer together. Emma found herself falling for Malik in a way she never had during their initial arrangement. This wasn't the cold businessman she'd met at the auction, but a caring, complex man who was trying his best to be a good father figure to her son. One evening, as they watched Noah playing in Central Park, Malik turned to her. "I never thought I'd have this," he said quietly. "A family that feels real, not just an obligation to carry on the family name." Emma squeezed his hand. "I never thought I'd have it either. Not after everything." She trailed off, still haunted by the choices that had led her here. Malik lifted her chin gently, meeting her eyes. "We can't change the past, Emma, but we can build a future. Together." As Noah ran back to them, cheeks flushed with exertion and joy, Emma felt a sense of peace settle over her. They weren't perfect, but they were family. And for now, that was enough. The positive pregnancy test felt like both a triumph and a complication. Emma stared at it in the bathroom, her emotions a whirlwind of excitement, fear, and uncertainty. She and Malik had been trying for months, but now that it was a reality, the implications hit her full force. When she told Malik, his reaction surprised her. Instead of the businesslike satisfaction she half expected, his face lit up with genuine joy. He lifted her in a spinning hug, then immediately set her down, apologizing for being too rough. "Are you okay? Do you need to sit down? Should we call the doctor?" His stream of concerned questions made Emma laugh, dispelling some of her anxiety. Telling Noah was another matter. At 9 years old now, he was old enough to understand the basics. But Emma worried about how he'd feel about sharing his mother's attention. To her relief, Noah took the news with enthusiasm. "Does this mean I get to be a big brother?" he asked, eyes wide with excitement. "Yes, sweetheart," Emma replied, pulling him close. "You're going to be the best big brother." As her pregnancy progressed, Emma marveled at the changes in their family dynamic. Malik became even more protective, not just of her, but of Noah too. He insisted on accompanying them to every doctor's appointment, his hand a constant presence on Emma's lower back, steadying her. Noah took his role as future big brother seriously, helping to prepare the nursery and even reading pregnancy books to understand what his mother was going through. One evening, Emma overheard him talking to Malik. "Will you still want me around when the baby comes?" Noah asked, his voice small. Malik's response was immediate and firm. "Noah, you are just as much a part of this family as the baby. I love you both, and that will never change." Emma's heart swelled, realizing that somewhere along the way, they had truly become a family. But as her due date approached, new worries surfaced. How would Malik's family react to Noah? Would they accept this unconventional family unit? Malik seemed to sense her concerns. "My father is traditional," he admitted one night as they lay in bed, his hand resting on her swollen belly. "But he's also a businessman. He'll come around when he sees how happy we are, how good this is for all of us." Emma wasn't so sure, but she trusted Malik. They had come so far from their initial arrangement, built something real and precious. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As she drifted off to sleep, Emma felt the baby kick. Her hand found Malik's, intertwining their fingers over the spot where their child grew. In that moment, despite all the uncertainties, she felt truly at peace. The contraction started in the middle of the night. Emma woke Malik, who sprang into action with an efficiency that would have been comical if she wasn't in pain. Noah, staying with Mrs. Rodriguez for the night, was informed but told to stay put until morning. At the hospital, Malik never left Emma's side. He held her hand through each contraction, wiped her brow, and whispered encouragements. When the pain became almost unbearable, and Emma cried out that she couldn't do it, Malik's voice was steady and sure. "You are the strongest woman I know, Emma. You've overcome so much. You can do this. We're in this together." After hours of labor, their daughter was born, a healthy girl with Malik's dark hair and Emma's green eyes. As the nurse placed the baby in Emma's arms, she looked up at Malik, seeing tears in his eyes for the first time. "She's perfect," Malik whispered, gently touching his daughter's tiny hand. "Thank you, Emma, for everything." When Noah arrived later that morning, his eyes wide with wonder at his new baby sister, Emma felt a completeness she had never known before. Watching Malik show Noah how to hold the baby, She realized that the contract that had brought them together now seemed like a distant memory. "What's her name?" Noah asked, carefully cradling his sister. Malik and Emma exchanged a look. They had discussed names but hadn't settled on one. "What do you think we should name her?" Malik asked Noah. Noah thought for a moment, then smiled. "How about Amira? It means princess in Arabic, right?" Malik's eyes widened in surprise and pride. "That's right, Noah, it's perfect." "Amira it is," Emma agreed, her heart full of love for her family. Weeks after bringing Amira home, Emma found Malik in his study, staring at a document on his desk. As she approached, she recognized it. Their original contract. I've been thinking," Malik said, not looking up. "This document, it doesn't reflect who we are anymore, does it?" Emma's heart raced. "What do you mean?" Malik stood, taking her hands in his. "When I entered this arrangement, I thought I was simply securing an heir, fulfilling my family's expectations. But you and Noah, you've shown me what a real family is." He paused, his eyes full of emotion. "I love you, Emma. I love our children. I don't want you to stay because of a contract. I want you to stay because you choose to. Because you love me too." With that, he tore the contract in half, then quarters, letting the pieces fall to the floor. Emma felt tears streaming down her face. "Malik, But he wasn't finished. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a small velvet box. "Emma Roberts, will you marry me? Not for business, not for obligation, but for love." Emma looked at the man before her, so different from the cold businessman she'd met at the auction. She thought of Noah, of baby Amira, of the family they'd built together. "Yes," she whispered, "yes, I'll marry you." The wedding was a joyous blend of cultures, with guests from Toronto to Dubai. Noah, now 10, proudly walked Emma down the aisle, while Mrs. Rodriguez held baby Amira, who cooed and reached for the colorful decorations. As Emma and Malik exchanged vows, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From desperation and deception had grown understanding, respect, and finally, love. Malik's father, initially skeptical of their unconventional family tie, had come around after meeting Noah and Amira. He now doted on his grandchildren, teaching Noah about their heritage and spoiling Amira with gifts. At the reception, Malik clinked his glass for a toast. "A year ago, I thought I knew what I wanted in life. But this beautiful woman and our 2 amazing children have shown me what truly matters." He raised his glass. "To family, to love, and to new beginnings." Later, as they swayed on the dance floor, Emma leaned into Malik's embrace. "I never imagined this is where we'd end up," she murmured. Malik kissed her forehead gently. "Neither did I, but I wouldn't change a thing." As the evening wound down, Emma watched Noah teaching Amira to clap along to the music, while Malik chatted with Mrs. Peterson, who had become like a grandmother to their family. She thought about the charitable foundation they'd started, helping single mothers and children in need, a way to give back and ensure others wouldn't face the desperate choices she once had. In that moment, surrounded by love and family, Emma knew that their story was just beginning. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. What did you think of the story? Leave a comment and rate this story from 0 to 10. What rating would you give it, and why? 2 buttons will appear next to it. One to subscribe, if you haven't already, and the other to watch other interesting stories. Choose one. Thanks for watching this far. See you soon.